Okay, welcome everyone. After this long Shabbos Hagadol, the Drasha and two blot in Azov, we now have the pleasure of learning the Mishnah Yomis in Nazir. And by the way, many people have contacted me that we are not in sync with the Mishnah Yomis schedule. That's because in one Masechta they followed the Kahati, which broke up a bunch of Mishnayos, which the Yochanan Boyer's Mishnayos and the Artsco Mishnayos did not break up. But we will go and synthesize back to the calendar by skipping a few days on the first days of Pesach. That's where we will catch up. So if you see Mishnah Yomis missing, as we head into the first days of Pesach, that will be because we are trying to get back in sync with the calendar of the Mishnah Yomis. But right now it's business as usual as we start with Mishnah Dalid and Hey, tonight's Mishnayos in the fifth parak. Sponsored by the Fisher family, Lila Nishna Spasi Bas Rabbi Shlomo ben Avraham Alevi, Perel Bas Ruvain, that the Neshama should have an Aliyah. Also sponsored, Lila Nishmas Elchanan Bunim ben Naftali Beinish Elimelech ben Eliezer, L'Refu Shalema for Eliyom Moshe ben Chayesar, and the schus of Avram ben Yom ben Beinish ben Malki Yehudis, by Yod Klugman and family for their Panasa Berevach of the Chavit, L'Refu Shalema for Meir ben Chayesar, and Esther Pradel, Baschana, they should have a refuah shalema b'seich shar chayli Yisrael. Now, if you remember, we said that when it comes to making a neder, if Shelley makes a neder, and then he wants to go to a chacham to be mated the neder, to release the neder, so the chacham has to find a Pesach. And I gave you the best example that I like, is Shelley said, I make a vow not to have paprika. And he goes to the Chacham, and the Chacham tells him, if you would have known that by not having paprika, you're going to be also to have all caterers' cholents, would you have made the neder? And Shelley said, no. So then they are allowed to be mated the neder. However, if he said that, I make a neder not to have tapioca, and they tell him, but if you knew that the caterers are going to start putting tapioca in the cholent when you have made the neder, that's noiled. Because there's no way that he could have anticipated that they would put tapioca in the cholent. So now, our Mishnah has an interesting spin on noiled. Again, the fourth Mishnah in the fifth parak. Misha Nadar ben Nazir. If somebody makes a vow of Naziris, that's Shelley. Now, Shelley made a vow of Naziris because he knew he had 3 animals in the corral that's available for him to bring for his 3 kabbanas, achatas, and oila, and shlama. But v'halach lahavi es be'emta, he went to look at his animals, and to his chagrin, u'mitzah shenignava, he found that the animals were stolen. So he comes to the Rav, apoplectic, and he says, if I would have known that my animals would be stolen and I'd have to spend $1,500 on buying 3 animals, I wouldn't become a Nazir. So here's the way it works. If he made the Naziris before they were stolen, Harizeh Nazir, it's not a good Pesach. Because he can't say if I would know that it would be stolen, because it's not something that he could have foreseen. Being stolen is noiled. However, if his animals were stolen already before he said Hareini Nazir, he just didn't know about it, then he could have said, if I would have realized that they would have already stolen, I would have never been a Nazir, then that's a good Pesach, and ain't a Nazir. He's not a Nazir. And this mistaken psak was made by Nachum Hamadai. Probably the Mishnah reveals this to be a kapara for him, because otherwise why tell us about his mistake? But this was a mistake that Nachum Hamadai made, kisha'olu nazirim min hagoyla. People in the diaspora were makabel naziris. they didn't know that the Beis Hamikdash would be destroyed. And once the Beis Hamikdash would be destroyed, there's no way for them to terminate the Naziris. So then, when they came up, they found the Beis Hamikdash destroyed. So Nachum HaModeh said to them, if you would have known that the Beis Hamikdash would be destroyed, would you have made a Naziris? They said no. And Nachum HaModeh permitted it. However, the Chacham said no. If they made the Naziris before it was destroyed, that's not a good Pesach, because that's Noiled. If they made the Naziris before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Nazir, that's not a good Pesach, because that's Noiled. They couldn't have foreseen that the Beis Hamikdash would be destroyed. Or Mishachar Beis Hamikdash, but if they made it after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, then ain't a Nazir, because just they didn't know about it. And therefore they said, truthfully, if we would have known about it, we would have never been a Nazir. Now here, the next case is a very interesting case. If Shelley and Yisrael were walking on the road, the Echad Ba Kenegda, and a man was walking in front of them. Man was walking in front of them. Amar Echad Mehem. So Shelley says, Hareini Nazir Shezeh Plain. I'm a Nazir, that's Dr. Block. The Echad Amar, and Yisrael says, Hareini Nazir Shein Zeh Plain. I'm a Nazir, that's not Dr. Block. Not tall enough to be Dr. Block. The Echad Amar Nachman says, Hareini Nazir Shein, excuse me, Nachman says, Hareini Nazir she'echad mikem Nazir. I'm a Nazir, one of you is a Nazir. Which makes sense, because one of them is right. And Jay says, I'm a Nazir she'ein echad mikem Nazir. One of you is not a Nazir. It's also true. Then, to make things interesting, Steve says, I'm a Nazir she'shneichem Nazirim. You're both a Nazir. That sounds like an impossibility. But if you think that's something, Yitzi caps it all. Yitzi says, I'm a Nazir she'kolchem Nazirim. You're all a Nazir. So, on this, I think with that, Yitzi changed places. Says the Gemara, on this, Beis Shammai says everybody's a Nazir. Beis Shammai says hektish b'taz is hektish. So even if they made a mistake, they're a Nazir. So Beis Shammai Aimer kol Nazirim. Beis Hillel Aimer, and we're going to change the girsa to the way the Gemara has the girsa. Beis Hillel Aimer eina Nazir ela misha niskaimu devara. Only a Nazir, the one who's right. So therefore, if it was Dr. Block, Shelley is a Nazir because it was Dr. Block. Yisrael is not a Nazir. Nachman is a right because one of them is a Nazir. Jay is right because one of them is not a Nazir. Stephen is wrong because both of them are not a Nazir. Only one, Shelley, who got it right. And Yitzi is not a Nazir because they're all not Nazirim. So only the ones that are Skaimu Devara. Reb Tarfon Amar, Reb Tarfon says, Ein echad mehem Nazir. Reb Tarfon says, just give me 1 minute, I'll be with you. Come in. Ein echad mehem Nazir. Reb Tarfon says, nobody's another. Why? Because it says, Ish ki yafli lindor neder Nazir lahazir laHashem. Yafli means that it has to be decisive. And no one is decisive. Shelley is not sure it's Dr. Block. You see, Yisrael said it's not. So therefore, since none of them is decisive, so therefore none of them is a Nazir. That's a special din of Rabbi Tarfon in Masechtas Nazir. Rabbi Isai, we want to thank you for this long evening. Remind you that tomorrow night, Bedika night, the Daf Yomi is at 9:30. And also to remind you, I didn't get a chance, I'll announce it tomorrow night, but Shir on Motzi Yom Tov of the first days will be at 10 p.m., broadcasting from the Doubletree in Somerset. And now that we got ahead, we're only going to have to do 2 block, which is a big relief. It'll be like a regular Matzah Shabbos. Also, if you get a chance and you haven't heard the Shabbos HaGadol Drasha yet, it's on YouTube. It's on TorahAnytime.com. I also put on YouTube something very interesting, a model Seder, which I gave in 2020. Very interesting. I gave that during COVID. And there's also a great shir, which I gave to the Bochrim in Yeshiva of Staten Island, called the Pesach Shmooze 2017. That's also on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, please do so. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a wonderful Vach.